Welcome back. You're watching Newsnight, and businesses must assist employees to avoid unnecessary debt. And that's according to Education Centre Pay Me Now, who says assisting employees with financial education is of paramount importance. But what role can employers play in breaking that end-of-year debt cycle? We've got the head of business development at Pay Me Now, Brian Habana, who joins me now to unpack these details. No doubt a very difficult time that people go through in the festive period. We know that there's a huge gap between December pay and January pay, but we still follow the same habits. And a big component of this, Brian, is the fact that the financial education in the country at large is very lacking.
We were absolutely brilliant to be chatting to you this evening. And yes, January is a thing, and it sort of seems that we always get to this cycle, and there's always this talk around the early December pay and how long the month of January is, where money has been spent on festivities, on buying presents, on travel, and people then get to the first 2 weeks of January, and there's just a lot of month left at the end of their salary. So being able to use financial education over and above earned wage access platform like Pay Me Now to try to help employees see themselves through is definitely ways and means that employers can start looking to aid and assist their staff in these really tough economic and financial times.
Right. What are some of those ways that employers can get involved and support their employees during those long weeks of January?
There are many ways. I think for us as Pay Me Now, an earned wage access platform that allows employers to give their employees access to a percentage of their already hard-earned wages, through the course of the month. And I think where Pay Me Now is a little bit different is that we actually use financial education and training tools to incentivize people to upskill themselves around their own financial situation, and in so doing, get access to a little bit more of that percentage that the employer sets as a limit. And again, providing them with tools that makes them better financial citizens, but also giving them the ability to manage their own finances better and try to avoid the costly microlending, payday lending environment that we see in South Africa that has caused vicious debt cycles. And it's been brilliant to see how employers are using earned wage access platform to try to break that cycle for their employees. And it's great for Pay Me Now to sort of be a market leader at the moment with just over 150,000 employees with access to the platform.
No, absolutely, Brian. And of course, I'm glad you bring up that vicious debt cycle that often rears its head at times like this. Despite the fact that we're dealing with COVID and this global pandemic, debt also adds quite significantly to stress and anxiety. And many people actually find themselves unable to do anything because of the levels of anxiety that this debt has brought them.
That is 100% correct. And, it also fuels a lot of a poor mental health state that so many employees face, as well as potentially adding to the bad decisions they make. And I think, when employees potentially get themselves into this debt spiral, they don't understand, what the percentages are in terms of how much they're repaying and, how much the escalation and compound interest is on potential, the fintechs that they're experiencing. And that then forces them to make bad decisions, putting them under pressure, and in so doing, not make them real productive employees, which puts strain on the employer. So being able to use earned wage access or on-demand platforms to allow citizens and employees to sort of find their own way, but also incentivize them to financially educate themselves, I think is extremely important.
Right, here's something I found interesting in some of the insights that you've shared with us, Brian, that this is the time where people actually spend the most money because it's the summer period. Is this just thing, or is it always the holiday periods like Easter or any other parts that we have a break? Talk us through these spending habits that people would have.
I think, from first time, you potentially have to look at it from a retailer's perspective. I think it's a time of the year where they put on specials. There seems to be these discounted, affordable ways of, treating yourself and spending lavishly. And people sort of go over their means. They also don't understand that potentially, even if you do and are lucky enough to get a bonus early in December, all of a sudden, the next 6-week period, you have to sort of try, stretch that little bit that you have that much further. And not only is it the festive period, but then it's back to school, and buying, stuff for the beginning of the year. And people just seem to overextend themselves in a way that they then can't find any alternate source of income, and that then forces them to go to the exorbitant microlenders and payday lenders. That puts them even under more pressure and makes those stress levels increase astronomically. So yeah, it is about employers trying to assist their employees, but also allowing employees to really financially educate and upskill themselves.
Yeah, and as they do it, obviously we've got the financial literacy programs which would be developed there. And just talk us through some of the important things that would need to be included in this program so that an employee gets a holistic understanding of how to manage finances. One of those elements, I assume, would be things like budgeting.
100% correct. And I think, we come to Janu-worry every year and we talk potentially about the same principles, but it's trying to create really good habits for employees. And, if you are allowing them to potentially get access to, some of their hard-earned money a little bit earlier in their month, but then use financial education tools to tell them, how do you actually create a budget? Or do you understand what your credit score is? And, these are sort of some of the very basic financial education tools that are within the Pay Me Now platform that really encourages employees to upskill themselves and sort of go from bronze to silver to gold. And in so doing, get more access and almost reward themselves a little bit like the Vitality model. And as more employers do that, I think the better financial citizens, employees will become.
Absolutely. Brian Habana there. Thank you very much for your time this evening. He's the head of business development at Pay Me Now. Speaking about January, those 6 months of January that we all go through and how to better manage our finances so we can actually make it through that really, really tough month at the beginning of each year.